What if I told you there was a guy who outplayed prime Xavi, Iniesta and Busquets at just 19 years old? What if I told you the same guy won Young Player of the Year and Player of the Year for his club also at 19 years old while making PFA Team of the Season? What if I told you the same player wore the captain's armband for Arsenal at just the age of 20? Now what if I told you he was retired by the age of 30? Would you believe me? This is the story of Jack Wilshere, the guy who was supposed to lead Arsenal into the new era of the Emirates, while also finally solving England's creative midfielder problems until tragedy prevented greatness. The streets will never forget Jack Wilshere. Born in Stevenage, Jack always loved football, playing from a very young age for his school team where he would captain them to trophies. At the age of 9, he joined Arsenal's illustrious Haaland Academy. Jack was always a very impressive player, rising through the ranks of the academy, and by age 15 he was captain of the under-16s and he also got minutes in the under-18 squad. With many eyes on the young prodigy, Jack was named in the squad for a number of first-team games in the 2008-2009 season for Arsenal. This included UCL qualifiers versus FC Twente and the first two Premier League games of the season versus West Brom and Fulham respectively. But it would be on September 13th, 2008, where he would make his official first-team debut for Arsenal. In a 4-0 win versus Blackburn, Wilshere made an appearance at just 16 years old and 256 days, becoming Arsenal's youngest ever player, a record only broken in the 2022-2023 season by current Haaland prospect Ethan Nwaneri. He followed that up by 10 days later, scoring his first Arsenal goal versus Sheffield United in a 6-0 thrashing of the Blades in a League Cup third-round victory. Jack topped off this season by helping Arsenal's under-18s win the FA Youth Cup, scoring and assisting in the first leg of the final against Liverpool as Arsenal ran out comfortable 6-2 winners on aggregate. Jack Wilshere had not only proven himself as a leader and a top player at youth level, but also a player to watch in the years to follow. Jack would begin the 2009-10 season at Arsenal, having a few cameos in the first team, but halfway through he was loaned out to Bolton. This opportunity gave him a chance to play consistently in the Premier League without the pressure of playing for a top 4 side, a good way to develop as an 18-year-old. In a short 6-month spell at Bolton, he had a few impressive performances playing 1,091 minutes of Premier League football, scoring and assisting once each. He was expected to go back out on loan for the 2010-11 season, but Wenger was ready to bring him through on a consistent basis for the first team. This season for Jack started by the youngster getting his first cap for England against Hungary, coming off the bench as a second-half substitute for Steven Gerrard. In the Premier League, he started 6 of the first 8 games for the Gunners, impressing with brilliant agility, technique, and composure on the ball, and a hard-nosed, tenacious side to match. This proved true as in the same 8-game stretch, he accumulated 2 yellow cards and a red, showing a bit of naivety. All of these qualities are what made him loved by the fans though, who backed him for his passion and commitment for the badge. Gunners globally backed him, and so did Wenger, giving him 3,819 minutes of football that season and undoubtedly repaid the faith. On February 16th, 2011, Barcelona's star-studded side came to the Emirates to take on Arsenal in the Champions League round of 16 first leg, with a squad featuring Lionel Messi, Xavi, Iniesta, Busquets, David Villa, and coached by Pep Guardiola at the peak of their powers. Everyone expected a Barcelona win, as Arsenal only managed to come second in their group behind reigning UEFA Cup winners Shakhtar Donetsk. But we all know football isn't a straightforward game. Arsenal went into the game on a high, second in the league, 1 point behind United, into a League Cup final and a favourable draw in the FA Cup. However, this was still prime Barcelona. In a tightly contested first half, Wilshere showed his quality early on, not shying away from the ball, trying to make things happen on the ball. He wowed viewers by showing his composure and determination in receiving the ball in tough areas, turning and looking to play forward, as well as driving at that Barcelona midfield and defence on countless occasions. All this while also getting stuck into what felt like every single challenge against the world-class Spanish midfield, earning their respect from the opening whistle. With Barcelona taking the lead through David Villa in the 26th minute, Arsenal went in at the break down, but not out. Jack continued his impressive display, continuing to pick up the ball off his defenders and other midfielders and drive at Barcelona relentlessly. After the introduction of Andre Arshavin, Arsenal began to take the game by the scruff of the neck. Jack and Andre linked up early, creating chances and gave the Gunners fans belief. After Van Persie's rocket strike brought Arsenal level, Arshavin scored the winner, giving Arsenal a 2-1 lead in the tie and hoping to knock out the Spanish heavyweight in the next round. Even though Arsenal lost the second leg, I went out to Barcelona that night, cemented Jack Wilshere in English football folklore. 19 years old, with probably the most composed and mature performance in a high-stakes clash versus a top side you've ever seen. Not only were Arsenal fans left in awe, but so was world football. He ended the season with 2 goals and 9 assists, not to tag along with 8 yellow cards, winning PFA Young Player of the Year and also making PFA Team of the Year in his first full season as a starter. They even put him on the cover of FIFA 12 with Wayne Rooney. He was what every Arsenal fan wanted. A passionate player who gave everything for the club, but also a player who was technically gifted enough to play against the top players in world football. The sky was the limit for young Jack. In the summer of 2011, Jack picked up his first major injury in a preseason friendly versus the New York Red Bull, an injury where he was required to have surgery. After initial reports stating that he would be back for February of 2012, the recovery process did not go as planned, and it ended up ruling him out for the entire 2011-12 season. After stellar performances and massive hype from the season before, Jack didn't manage a single minute of football this season, even missing out on the Olympic and European Championship squads for England. Jack would, however, return in October of 2012 with an impressive performance against QPR, reminding fans of his world-class potential. However, the squad he came back to wasn't the team who looked to push for league titles and go deep in the Champions League. According to reports by The Guardian, 41 different players appeared for Arsenal between his last game before injury and his first game back from injury against QPR. Jack had only previously played with 4 first-team players of that squad: Vito Manon, Bakary Sagna, Thomas Vermaelen, and Aaron Ramsey. However, they still managed to finish 4th under Wenger, narrowly beating out rivals Tottenham to the last top 4 spot. Wilshere impressed that season, being one of the key figures in that Arsenal squad, and also, at one point, he was given the captain's armband after Thomas Vermaelen went off injured in the game against West Ham at the age of 20. Also this season, he signed a new 5-year deal. The 2013-14 season looked to be another impressive one for Jack, back to consistently starting and showing his quality. This is also the season where he probably scored the best team goal in Premier League history, as Wilshere finished off an exquisite team move versus Norwich. But this season, Jack wasn't without his injuries. He suffered 2 different injuries this season, one a foot injury and the other one being a sprained ankle, keeping him out for 13 games this season. Still managing, however, to help Arsenal break their 9-year trophyless spell in a 3-2 FA Cup victory over Hull City, as he finished with his career best 5 goals in the season, adding another 5 assists. In the 2014-15 season, he picked up an ankle injury versus United, missing 26 games that season, but he still managed to help Arsenal win their 2nd consecutive FA Cup. However, he only managed 6 goal contributions in less than 1,500 minutes of football. In the 2015-16 season, he was really a crushing one for Jack. In August, he suffered a fracture in his fibula bone in his calf. Initial reports and medical analysis suggested that he would miss only a few weeks, but after undergoing surgery again, he was kept out for 8 months, only returning in late April, playing 141 minutes of first-team football in total that season. Jack speaking in a recent podcast with Ben Foster: "My first injury was my worst. The doctor said he was only seeing a case like mine in one other person, a snowboarder. I went back to see the surgeon and he was like, 'You still playing?' He showed me the notes from the surgery saying, 'Might not play again, might not be able to walk.' Yeah." Also stating in the same interview, after his initial injury, his ankle never moved the same again, and it cost him his ability in his knees and his ankles. After working his way back, Arsenal thought it was best that Jack Wilshere go out on loan, and so he did, moving to Bournemouth, hoping to gain match fitness and sharpness to help his career get back on track. He won Bournemouth's Player of the Month twice in November and December of 2016, impressing as one of the best players in that squad, but however, he suffered another injury at the back end of the season, again unable to completely close out a season fully healthy. Despite this, a host of clubs were still in for Jack Wilshere, but instead of cashing in, Arsenal decided to stick by Jack and keep him at the club, letting him run down his contract with the Gunners. In the 2017-18 season, he managed to feature in 38 games in all competitions, including 2 games for the under-23s. Starting in 12 of Arsenal's Europa League fixtures that season, playing 90 minutes in 8 of them as Arsenal went to the semi-finals of the competition. But in the league, he only managed 1 goal and 3 assists in 1,187 minutes of football, taking his season tally to 2 goals and 7 assists. By this time, Wilshere's injuries were affecting his body, and no doubt he was still talented, but at the age of 26, he just wasn't good enough for Arsenal anymore. A crushing reality for fans who watched him go toe-to-toe against the best midfield ever at 19 years old, which was only 7 years prior. After the tumultuous exit of Arsene Wenger, new manager Unai Emery made it very clear to Wilshere that he wasn't going to be in the starting 11. But he still offered him a new contract and the ability to fight for his place in the squad. Jack, however, refused and decided to join boyhood club West Ham, where he would look to regain confidence and form. After countless ankle injuries and groin injuries, among other surgeries and recoveries, Jack Wilshere only managed 19 games for the Hammers, only managing 1 goal and 1 assist. At the start of the 2020-2021 season, he was released by West Ham after the club couldn't let a player making £100,000 a week just sit stuck on the recovery room. Arsenal took him back, allowing him to regain his fitness as he searched for a new club. He managed to move back to Bournemouth for that season, but ultimately didn't land a significant deal to stay with the Cherries. After signing for Danish club Aarhus and only playing 14 games for the club, he retired at the age of 30 after continuous injuries not only affected his body, but his mental health. In the aforementioned podcast with Ben Foster, Wilshere expressed, quote, "I remember being out for 18 months and thinking, am I ever going to get back to that level?" Jack is now the coach of Arsenal's under-18s, as he tries to pass on the knowledge and experience he gained down to the next future talents of HLN, being the coach of the player who took his debut record for Arsenal, Iniesta and Busquets. So, how good was Jack Wilshere? A quote by Xavi in 2015 states, "If he had a career that had been injury-free, we would be already talking about him as one of the top central midfield players in Europe. I've played against him. I've watched him carefully, and if he can overcome injuries, he can still go on to be one of the best midfield players in the world." With respect and admiration from his contemporaries for his outstanding composure, technique, ball control, ball progression, and tenacity, Jack Wilshere was one of the most talented English players in his generation. Not many players could have a performance like that versus prime Barcelona. Not many players could say they won PFA Young Player of the Year and got into the PFA Team of the Season at just 19 years old in his first full season as a starter. Jack Wilshere, surely a player the streets will never forget.